Hello guys, today's lecture is about software evolution. Before come to discuss in detail the software evolution and evolution process in detail, first we discuss about the software change. Software change is unavoidable, means we cannot avoid changes in software. The changes can be in the functionalities, or we can say the functional user requirements, or we can bring modification in the whole system architecture, software architecture, the non-functional requirements, or even we can add new functionalities, new modules, new subsystems to the existing system. So what can be the reasons of these changes? New requirements emerge when the software is used. Sometimes the user's stakeholder does not know about all the requirements in the start. Eventually, when the software goes, the business runs on and all the process takes place over the time, the business stakeholder feel more and more changes that should be implemented. The business environment change, sometimes the business policies change, and we can say the business requirements change. Business environment changes bring business need changes, business rules can be changed, and on the basis of business requirements then we modify the user requirement list. Error must be repaired, so not all the times new modification comes, but we need to fix the existing errors, bugs in the system. New computers and equipment is added to the system, or we can say technology changes. Technology can change over the time. If the system is lifetime, or if the system is older than 10 years and new technology change occurs, so the existing system it might be possible that the existing software does not support the existing technology, the new upcoming technology, so we must have to adopt the existing system to that new technology, so we must bring changes. The performance or reliability of the system may have to be improved. This is the important point. A key problem for all organization is implementing and managing changes to their existing software system. Importance of evolution. So discuss about something about the importance of evolution. Organizations have a huge investment in their software systems. They are critical business assets. The first importance. The second is to maintain the value of these assets to the business, they must be changed and updated. And remember one thing, that in market every competitor want to have a modified and good software as compared to their competitors. So, and they have a budgets, they have a team, so they start evolution process. The majority of the software budget in the large companies is devoted to the changing and evolving existing software rather than developing new software. If we talk about the small web application or mobile application or mobile application systems or real-time system, small projects, so sometimes we don't need to modify it, but rather we develop software from the scratch. But talk about the large systems like ERP systems developed by several companies such as Odoo, SAP. So it's become very much difficult to develop the software from the scratch, from the beginning, because already a huge amount of budget in millions and billions are already invested. So if they make it start from the scratch, so it become very much costly. Not only costly, but it is also a time consuming process. It can take years. So rather than starting implementing a whole software from the scratch. What software houses, companies do, they bring modification in the existing software. The majority of the software budget in the large companies is devoted to the changing and evolving existing software rather than developing new software. So this is an important point. A spiral model of development and evolution. Let's see this phase. This is a specification where the requirements of the users of the system are specified, then implementing, test validation process comes, and requirements are tested, features are tested, system as a whole is tested, and then it is released for the operation in the real environment. And changes comes in specification, and then this cycle goes on. We cannot say in advance or in the beginning of the development that this will be the end product, this will be not the, or we cannot develop an ideal software that will run over the time for the long term. No, that is impossible. So every software needs improvement, and this cycle goes on. Evolution and servicing. Software development phase, then evolutions. Evolution means bring changes, and then servicing. Software gives service to the users, and software retirement. Software retirement means software does not provide does not achieve the desired or challenging business goals of the stakeholders based on their needs. So software goes to the retirement. Evolution, the stage in the software system life cycle where it is in operational use, proper operational use, and is evolving as a new requirements are proposed and implemented in the system. Servicing, at this stage the software remain useful, but the only changes made are those required to keep it operational. Bug fixes and changes to reflect the changes in the software environment. No new functionality is added. So servicing here is a bidirectional actually. When the software give you a service and you give service to the software as a kind of maintenance. Laterly we will discuss the 4 types of maintenance. So this is also a maintenance that for better in order to make it operational, so we must have to fix the bugs and bring the changes, daily based changes, improvement. So that is actually the servicing. Phase out, the software may still be used but no further changes are to it. Now come to evolution process. Software evolution process depend on the type of software being maintained. The type mean is it a web-based application, a mobile-based application, either it is a small project or large project, big project. So the nature of software should be analyzed, and the platform, development platform in which the software is developed is also important to know. And additionally we can also say that other factors like the architecture, the system architecture, software architecture analysis also important to know about it. The development process used, as I stated, the skills and experience of the people involved, and obviously the process model from which the whole software goes from requirement in inception to the maintenance phase. Proposals for changes are the driver of the system evolution, should be linked with the components that are affected by the change, thus allowing the cost and impact of change to be estimated. Remember that the requirements are not isolated or independent but are linked together. Features are linked together. One change in one feature or one module or one requirement can affect other feature. So this is not easy. So while you are calculating the cost, you must have to consider the interdependencies. Change identification and evolution continues throughout the system lifecycle. One thing I forgot, why the software evolution process depend on type of software, because sometimes modification need more time as compared to develop the software from the scratch. So if we don't analyze these factors, so it can be literally very much costly for us. Change identification and evolution. So for evolution process, first we must have to identify the change identification. So we have to identify the changes, in which feature we have to bring changes, in which module we have to bring changes, and what type of changes we need. So changes proposals come, or change request, then evolution process take place, and new system is then deployed, and then from new system, when it is laterally operated, so new changes can further come. So it can be abruptly come, or it can take a time, but the cycle goes on. Now this is the detailed software evolution process. Change request come. Remember that change request can come from stakeholder like users of the system, like from the market survey. If we have deployed a generic product to the market, so from the survey or the opinion or the feedback or reviews, we can easily identify the changes. So change request can come from the everywhere, or system analyst by themselves can analyze. Sometimes the business stakeholder does not identify any further changes, but being the requirement analyst, you identify. Then impact analysis, as I stated, that type of software should be analyzed, the cost, etc. So impact, what will be the impact of this change? Release planning. Release planning is a phase done before the deployment. You plan for the particular release, and then change implementation. So you bring changes through implementation or coding, and then during implementation you can modify your release plan, and once the changes are done, you release the whole system, and after the system release, the new request can come. So there are three main things that comes in the release planning. These must be known to you. Fault repairing, platform adaptation like technology adaptation, system computer adaptation, and system enhancement, improvement. So sometime we are going to repair the particular feature or fix bugs, etc. Sometime we want to improve the non-functional requirements or the architecture of the system, or bring some changes on interface level, or sometime we have to bring platform adaptation changes. Changes implementation. So propose changes or change requests, requirements analyst analyze these changes, requirements list is updated, and then deployed. So this is the sub this diagram is the sub part of this. So impact analysis actually the requirement analysis, and then list is updated. From updating list means SRS or specification document. Change implementation, iteration of the development process where the revisions to the system are designed, implemented, and tested. A critical difference is that the first stage of change implementation may involve program understanding, especially if the original system developers are not responsible for change implementation. During the program understanding phase, you have to understand how program is structured, how it delivers functionality, and how proposed change might affect the program. Remember that impact analysis and requirement analysis also include the code structure understanding, because you are not going to develop from the scratch, but you are modifying the existing system. So it is important for you to understand the existing software architecture and code design and design pattern. So how well it is structured and what type of changes we must bring. If I take my example, it's difficult for me to understand one other code, because every developer is free to structure his or her own code. So based on their logic, they have implemented or designed the code. So it's difficult for analyst or new developers to understand that. So it is important to analyze and study the impact of these changes, because the changes alternately are through the coding. Urgent change request. Urgent changes may have to be implemented without going through all the stages of engineering process. If a serious system fault has to be repaired to allow normal operation to continue. If changes to the system environment, such as for example OS upgradation, have unexpected effects. If there are business changes that require a very rapid responses, the release of competing product. So competing product also need urgent changes. Emergency repair process, change request comes, analyze source code, modify source code, and deliver modify system. So this is the emergency repair process, and here we skip the release planning process and documentation process, and we speedily goes through this process. Agile methods and evolution. You know about agile. In agile, changes request comes abruptly, and the developers welcome, embrace the new changes, and customer is throughoutly communicated and involved in a frequent discussions. So agile methods are based on the incremental development. So the transition from development to evolution is a seamless one. Evolution is simply a continuation of development process based on the frequent system releases. This means, in simple words, evolution is the part of the development during agile implementation, because the system is not as a whole released, deployed and released, but you are developing and you release the software in sprints, in small increments, iteration. So user feedback comes, so you evolve that thing, modify. So evolution is very much important nowadays, because mostly nowadays agile method is followed and evolution process become critical. Automated regression testing is particularly valuable when changes are made to the system. You know about regression testing. What is regression testing? Regression testing is a testing where you test the integrated feature or module when you bring change in the one dependent requirement. For example, if we have two features, feature 1, feature 2, feature A and feature B, such that they both are related, or B is dependent on A, and we modify A, we bring changes in module A and we test successfully A. So we must have to test the module or feature B. Why? Because bringing changes in module A or feature A can bring changes in feature B or module B. So their test is called regression. So for regression testing, interdependencies should be considered. So automated regression testing is particularly valuable when changes are made to the system. If you bring change, so you have to do the unit test, then functional and system test and regression tests. Changes may be expressed as additional users stories. So that was discussed in a previous lectures, that user cannot tell you the exact features because they are not sure about, they are not 100% sure about their exact features, so they can tell the new changes in a form of user stories. So it's the primary responsibility of the requirement analyst to collect the features, the user requirements, so functionalities from that user stories. Hand-over problems where the development team have used an agile approach but the evolution team is unfamiliar with the agile method and prefer a plan-based approach. Evolution team may expect detailed documentation to support evolution, and this is not produced in agile, and this is discussed in a very detail in a or previous lecture agile, that documentation phase is skipped in agile, because once we prepare the design the documentation SRS, so we cannot maintain it in its original form. Why? Because changes abruptly comes over the time and it's difficult to maintain the original document and time consuming process too. So there is no documentation, or we can say agile does not rely on the documentation. So changes come and are implemented. Changes come and are implemented. So some development team does not use agile, and the reason is that there is no documentation, and rather they go on plan development process. Where a plan based approach has been used for a development, but the evolution team prefer to use the agile methods. But when the team goes and adopt the evolution process, so they must have to apply the agile rather than plan, because they know that evolution process need abrupt changes, and I stated that bringing changes in the documentation become very much costly. So when they know that evolution process will come or change is well expected, so we have a process model for that, and that is the agile. So plan driven approach is liked or adopted by the team when there is no evolution process or less chance of modification in the future, or we know this is the exact requirement that may not change over the time. So plan driven approach is adopted and they rely on the documentation, but agile is preferred more in evolution process. In next lecture I will discuss in detail about the legacy systems, so how to deal with the legacy systems and how to bring changes and how to assure the evolution process in legacy system. So thank you for listening my today's lecture. Thank you so much.